I'm going to hit the record button here. All right, so here is a blank spreadsheet. The very first thing I'm going to do is give it a name, and I'm going to call it my raw data sheet. And we're introducing this idea of, we're going to introduce the idea of these drop-down menus. So I'm going to insert a drop-down, and it's going to be on this raw data sheet. And my first option is just going to be the number 1, and then the number 2, and 3, and 4, and 5, and 6. I don't want the last one. I'll delete that. And then here, I'm going to use colors. You don't have to, but I think it's just kind of fun to use the colors. Yeah, I am doing this in a. I could do them in a more. They're such ugly colors, but that's what I've done. And we're going to make sure this box is unselected. So what I want to do, though, actually, I want to edit it. Instead of saying A1, I'm going to go all the way down to A36. So I have, or more. Some people went to 100. They had 100 dice. And then we had this idea of 1, 2, and you can type it out manually, or you can let Google Sheets be smart and say, hey, you've got a pattern there. Let's just continue to 6. And there's 2 on the drop downs. You can use it as a drop down, or you can type in a number, like I'll just mash a number. The cool thing about a drop down, it says, hey silly, you cannot roll a 7. There's no such thing as a 7 on your 6-sided die. Please try again. And that's kind of the benefit of it, besides just making it colorful. So I'm going to put in some numbers here. Like so, you would actually be rolling your dice. And I'm just going to go until I get to the end. It shouldn't take too much longer. There we are. So now, this was the first time we used an equation. We're going to say equals count if. And so you can, once you see the equations come up, you can go down and hit the tab button. The range, there's a couple ways we can do the range. I'm going to say A1 to A36. Actually, you know what? It says, it automatically guessed, hey, maybe you want to look at A1 to A36, and you're going to search for your criteria called, that's in B1. In fact, that is exactly what I wanted to do. But we're going to get a little bit more sophisticated here, and I want to name this range. Whoa. So this A1 to A36, I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to select it. I don't know if you knew you could do that. I'm going to select all these things here, and now I'm going to call it I'm just going to call it roll data 1, because later we're going to have a roll data 2. And now here I'm going to do that same equation just to show you here. So we're going to say count if, and the equation is actually wrong this time because it thinks I want to move down. This is actually kind of a subtle point, but it's an important point. When you move an equation down, like if you drag it down, it's going to move all of the references. References are what the boxes are you're pointing to. So it's going to move all of those down too. And that's why it's useful to use a named range. So I'm going to use the named range of roll data 1. And then the criterion, though, is going to be this B2 value. Now it says, do I want to autofill? No, I don't, because I only want to go down to right here. And then I'm going to do, we do the same thing for a second die. And you know what I'm going to do? I think I'm just going to hit copy, paste on this. And you know what? I don't even care. It's the same numbers. Y'all will have different numbers because you're rolling different die, the different dice. But you know what? Let's do this. All right. And so I'm going to use the same equation again. I'm going to say 1, 2, and I don't want to type out any more numbers. So I'm going to select it and let Google complete my 5, 6. 4, 5, 6. It's probably might be, but anyway, it's a useful skill. If you had like 100 things, you wouldn't want to be typing out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, all the way to 100. So it's just a skill. The whole idea of this unit is to teach you Excel/Sheets skills that you can use in any class. I promise you, throughout your high school science career, maybe even business career, you will be using spreadsheets. So my hope is you say, oh yeah, I remember that thing Mr. Barnum taught me, and I can apply it here, and it's going to save me an hour or 2 hours or 10 hours or even 100 hours if it's something you do regularly. So I'm going to show this equation one more. Actually, I'm going to give this a named range. This is also, we didn't do this last time. I'm going to say E1 to E36. We'll select that range. Instead of having to drag all the way down, again, if you had like 100 things you want to scroll all the way down, you can, but this is something maybe you didn't know. You can type in the range you want to select, and now I'm going to give it a range. I'm going to say roll data 2, Great. So now when I have this equation here, I'm going to say equals, any guesses? What am I going to type in here?
Count if.
Count if, yes. Count if, and the range is going to be roll data 2.
What does COUNTIF mean?
Oh, great question. So we'll put the little down arrow here. What does COUNTIF mean? It says about. It returns a count across a particular range. And then it even defines it. It says, hey, what is a range? A range is the area that is where you're searching. It's a fancy way of saying this is a range is a bunch of data that you're going to search.
So if I want to find like how many like 1 to 2 to 3, I just put COUNTIF.
Yep, and then you're going to say, hey, where do you want to search for that data? You're going to search for in this whole list that I've given a name range called roll data, or I could have said E1 to E36. Here's a second. Or I could have said just E:E, and that searches the whole column. Sometimes that's helpful if you have dynamic data. That means that your data is going to be adding or subtracting different numbers. And then my criterion, I'm going to pick this square here and sit OK. All right, question. Yes, Lee.
Does Google like teach you how to do this?
They do some teaching. Yeah, people put tutorials like they.
How did the tutorial makers know?
I mean, whoever. Good question. So whoever writes the program has to at the very least, write out this definition of it. And then I go to this Learn More button, and oh, here's a big help thing. Here's a little video on how to do it. Here's how you can make a copy of a functional one. If you want, here's working examples of it. So really good question. Thank you. So these are, and you notice here how you can search for things like, hey, maybe you want to count if a number is greater than 20 or a specific value or any of these things. This gives you all the different examples that you can do. So here we have COUNTIF. Again, I'm going to type it in just one more time because this is so helpful. So you've already done all this. That's cool. So if you COUNTIF, we're going to say data. Roll data 2, comma, that value, done. Cool. So now what we're going to do, we want to have our analysis sheet. I think hopefully most people are at least this far. I'm going to call it analysis. And I'm going to start off by, I want to bring my data from here over to here in a dynamic way. And so that means if the data over here changes, I want these values to change too. Some people, I think, copy and pasted it, and then there's a couple ways you can paste it, but I'm just going to reference the value. So I'm going to say equals, it's going to be equal to this square here, not here, this one here. And then we can just drag it down to there. And so this is, actually, you know what? We're not doing that. I'm tricking you. What we want to do, we don't want that data. We just want the count data. So all we care about. We care about these values and these values. But we're going to make a little data table here. So I'm going to say, here's the number. Hey, which number are we looking for? And again, here's going to be 1, and then we can 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then here is going to be, we'll say roll set. Roll data 1, roll data 2. You can call those, if you want to call that blue die, red die, regular die, fancy die, you can call it that too. Mine, I don't have any real things to roll. I just called it, it's like pretend roll data. So now here, I want to set this equal to this value, check. I'm going to set this one equal to that value, check. And now this is kind of cool. You can select both at the same time, and it's going to drag down. You'll notice here it updates the formula automatically. Sometimes it's helpful when it updates, sometimes it's not. So, hey, it says the first one you're pointing to C1. Maybe if you're going down, you want to point to C2 next. And you say, yes, actually, that is exactly what I wanted to do. Yes, that's exactly what I wanted to do. That's exactly what I wanted to do as well. What we're going to add in here now, we're going to add a total. It's almost always useful to have a total. And again, Google's is reasonably smart here. It says equals sum. Yeah, usually when you put a new line underneath a column, you usually want to sum it up. So we will sum it. And here I'm going to say equals sum. And it's going to say, yep, that's what I'm doing. And I like to just bold these so it stands out. You don't have to, but you may want to. Yes, question?
What's the point of the total if we know it is going to be because we...
Right, so great question. The question is, why would we want to have a total? There's two reasons. Is maybe your total changes. Maybe over here you added some more in. You decided you want to add more later. And so it's useful when you're making spreadsheets to make them flexible. So if you want to, hey, maybe you said, you know what, I want more data. I want to have 200 values now. and you don't want to have to change any of your equations, well, now you can just come back here and it will automatically be counting all your total number of rows. Because this one here, as long as this count is counting your whole range. See, this one I only put as 36. This one here, though, I did my whole range, and I can change that range later. So this is actually, I'm going to change that one back to roll data 1, so we can see now if any data changes, it's just going to update. I'm going to change a few numbers here, just so I can see on the other page they are going to be lining up. I'm just going to do this, actually. I'm going to make a whole bunch of 1s. 31 is not a number. Okay, and now on the next page, check this out, it does in fact update. So there's also a second reason we want the total, and that is we want to have our expected rolls. So our expected rolls is just going to be equal to our total divided by 6. And this is where there's there's two ways we can do this. If I drag this equation down, you'll say, uh-oh, no bueno. That's not what our expected is. We want to use the same equation, but we want to be using this value each time. So again, Google is sometimes it's smart and sometimes it's dumb. It doesn't know that I want to still divide by that number. So it's going to be our total number divided by 6, because it's a 6-sided die. If we had a 4-sided die, we'd be dividing by 4. If we had a 20-sided, we'd be dividing by 20. If we want to get really fancy, 1/6. Yeah, 6 because I did 36. If you did 72 rolls, you'd expect them all to be 12. So it's whatever total number you have divided by 6. And if you want to get really fancy here, should I get really fancy? Yeah, actually, there's two ways we can do it. I'm gonna name this range here. Actually, I'm gonna name this 1 square. I'm gonna say rolls total. I'll say roll total 1, and I call this one roll total 2. And now, if I say equals roll total 1 divided by 6. And I drag this down, that's fine, totally fine. So now you can see this. Hey, when I moved it down, it didn't change this number. I'm going to leave this one as sort of the.
Mine looks different.
Is we different values?
It does.
Okay, I'll have a look in a minute. Okay, I'm just gonna. I'll finish this up and then I'll come around for questions. So I'm going to say equals this divided by 6 because we are 6-sided die. But then I want to show you this other really helpful tool. So when I drag it down, again, it's incrementing. It says, hey, instead of looking here, I'm now looking down here. And now I'm looking down here. And now I'm looking down here, because every time when you drag an equation down, it updates the equation too. So what you can do instead, we're going to put in this thing, it's going to be a $sign. We're going to put in a $sign here. And what this $sign does, it says, hey, when you drag that equation down now, oops, actually I want to have the $sign in front of the 8, silly Mr. Barnum. Let's try that again. The $sign says keep that value the same even when you drag it down. It says, I know you want to make that number bigger, but don't. When I drag it down, keep that equation the same. Keep looking at that D8, keep looking at the D8, keep looking at the D8, keep looking at the D8. If I drag it this way, it changes to an E because I didn't put a $sign in front of the E. But if I put a $sign in front of this E now and drag it over, what might we expect to see over here? Or so the equation-wise, E8, E8, E8. So I think it's easier to just give your values a name, and then it's never going to mess up. You don't have to worry. The $signs, I don't know about you, I find the $signs, they're a little bit tricky. Yeah.
We can round if it's a whole number, right?
Sure.
Because for 100, the closest you can get is 17, but in total it's 102.
Okay, that's totally fine. So expected rolls here. Probably. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, sure, we can do it like that. So yeah, we'll put them together here. So I think we had a suggestion that maybe we put our 2 roll datas together. We put our 2 expected together.
Can I just do one expected if you roll the same amount of time?
Sure, why not? And so maybe we want to do it like this. We can maybe do this. I think we did the merge last time. So we can put in a merge here, and this is going to be the actual data or actual roles. And then we can call it whatever, blue dye or red or whatever yours happen to be. We want to center it because that makes it look nice. And over here is expected roles. And again, we'll do a little merge because again, I think it looks fancy, and we'll center it because it looks fancy. And we'll call it blue and red. And then finally, we're going to look at the differences. And again, we're going to join these together, center them, and here we'll call it blue and red. And now the difference is, hey, I got 9, but I was expecting 6. So we're going to say equals, we're going to say the expected minus, or actually we'll say the actual minus expected.
How did you move the whole thing? Make space for another row.
Great question. Yeah, so you just, over here, you just option click and say insert row either above or below, probably above if you're trying to add something at the top. And now here for my red dye, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to say equals.
Like, I'm so confused. What happened?
Oh, so what happened? Okay, I'll show you. I'll finish it up here and then I'll show you. So I'll actually show you exactly what.
What does differences mean?
So the difference between our actual values and our expected values. So predicted, or we can say predicted. Why don't we say that? Expected / predicted. Right, and so here, our red dice value, our difference is, hey, look at, we had 21, so we had equals 21 minus how many we expected, and we have 15 too many. And we'll see here it autofills again. I'm not going to do autofills because I want to type it in again. So equals, hey, we have this actually, and we expected this, we're too short. Okay, and now we can maybe just drag it down. I'm going to delete this total, that's not helpful. And then the last thing I want to do is this. I want to just select these and do format, conditional formatting. This is one of my favorite things, a color scale. Don't worry, I'll do it nice and slow again. Put it, yeah, I'll hold up a little bit here. So, yeah, so
Can you go over the whole thing, the whole differences thing again?
yeah, sure. So the differences is going to be equal to our actual roles that we got for a particular color, and then minus our expected value. So if we had more roles than we'd expected, would this number be positive or negative?
Wait.
If we have more roles than we expected, it would be positive. Yeah. And if we had fewer, it's going to be negative. And then over here, we're going to do the same thing for the red. So equals, what is our actual minus expected? And somehow Google Sheets is smart enough to know, yes, that is exactly what I want. Thank you. And we'll just drag it down. Thank you. And so now the one thing we're going to do to visualize this is we're going to say format, actually not alternating colors, that's a typo. We're going to
the total there? Or
probably not.
I'm just going to grab the screwdriver.
Yeah, for sure. We're going to do conditional formatting, color scale.
Whoa.
Yeah, for sure.
Can you pause?
Yeah. So
Wait, where do you get the thing? You just do insert.
yeah, you select the squares. It's under format, not insert. Yeah, and then conditional formatting means, hey, you're going to set the colors.
Format.
Okay.
I'm still filling in the differences.
Okay. Okay, well, I'm just recording the video, so I'm just going to finish it up on the video and then we can stop. So conditional formatting, color scale. I like this one that shows red is negative, green is positive. I'm going to set the midpoint to be at 0. There's all kinds of ways you can do this in different ways. Then we'll just say done. And then we can start to say, hey, was the first die a fair die? Was the second one fair? And we can start to maybe make some pretty good guesses.
What does the colors mean? Like